Welcome to the Author Next Door,
where we talk writing, publishing, and the business behind the books.
This podcast is for writers who are a few steps ahead into the journey. Maybe you've published, maybe you're planning what's next, and you realize the questions aren't getting easier. They're just getting more interesting.
Sometimes it's just our fabulous selves. Sometimes we bring friends to the table, but it's always lived experience and information you can use.
So pull up a chair. The conversation starts now.
Welcome to episode 71. I'm Angela Haas, and I'm here with my co-host, Cassie Newell. And this month, we've been discussing business concepts for writers. Today, we're going to wrap up the month, and we're going to talk about a few more things that come up with authors around running their business. So I have a few things I want to discuss. One being, what does success actually feel like? And I'm going to ask Cassie because she's all knowing. And two, you are your brand. And what does that really mean for your business? And the rapid release pressure, mostly because I just finished a Becca Syme course on that talked about this. And actually, I was totally validated in the kind of author I am. So let's get started with, what does success actually feel like? Because I feel like it's a little different to measure success in this way, right? In our day jobs, we have data and we have very, basic concepts that show us what is successful and what's not. I can pull up a line in our store and look at how much it costs versus how much we're selling it for versus how many we've sold. And I can say, you know what? This isn't a successful line, or this is doing well. I can count the people who come visit, and we can look at totals and how much we spent, and we can say, hey, this was a successful year. It's very cut and dry. But when you're an author, I mean, you spend a lot maybe creating your first book, which I did. And then it's sold, but it wasn't a gazillion copies sold. So I didn't make back the cost of my first book. But you don't quit because it's a long game. And then you've got to up your marketing. And it's like, where do we start to feel like we're being successful? What do you think? When are you going to feel like I am a successful author?
It's a good question because I think success is measured in a couple of different things, right? Completing a project, whatever that project looks like, is success. It's not always financial gain. Think for me, because this year my word is momentum. I think momentum usually looks repetitive before it looks impressive in terms of financial gain. So from my perspective, you have to define success for yourself. But I've found for me, if I focus too much on the financial pieces of trying to be a blockbuster out the gate, I disappoint myself.
Right.
So for me, it's about completing those projects, repeating, rinse and repeating, getting the next project and the next project. And I've got to tell you, I went to a book con recently, and before the VIPs came in, this lady came to my table and was like, "Oh my God, you're CK Darling." And I was like, "Yes." It was very like, huh? Because it was my first book event. I'm not super well known. And that was flattering to me. I could not believe it. And I don't know. To me, that was success. There was somebody that knew who I was and like in that space. So I felt like, okay, I'm doing something right. People are coming by, they're talking to me, they're looking at my things, and I've been building a community. It's been slow growing, but to me, it's interactive and super satisfying. So again, success. It may not be somebody's 20,000 on an email list or something to that degree. And I may not be a bestseller. I may not hit number one out the gate out of things. But I also think, again, momentum usually looks repetitive before it becomes impressive, whatever that impressive goal or dream is. So to me, I think I define success by projects.
Yeah.
What
Little,
about you? How do you define success?
I think maybe, yeah, like little stepping stones. I'm getting that picture. I couldn't apply the same metrics for success as I did as a retailer in
No, you
my
can't.
author business. And I came in thinking like, "Oh, cool. I'm gonna sell a bunch of copies and I'm gonna make this money back and blah blah blah." I mean, that I always am like a go big or go home when I'm
Yeah, I get it.
manifesting, but that's not realistic. I think having a successful author business is first step managing your expectations and being realistic and maybe stretching it out into like mini milestones. Having someone come up to you at a conference and say, "Wow, I've been
I know.
following
I
you. I
was
can't
like,
believe you're here."
"What?"
Super successful, right?
Yeah, that felt so good.
Readers messaging you and say, "I loved your book." I have
Yes.
gotten emails here and there from readers who must have connected with the back matter, took the time to
Yeah.
send me an email. They really liked my book. So that's where I started to feel like, okay, success. I did win a couple of awards for My Plus One Equals You. Okay, that actually feels like a little metric of success, and I get a little badge sticker to put on these now. So it looks different. It looks different for every author. And I think maybe it is managing your expectations and then setting these little mini goals that are totally achievable
Mhm.
and then rewarding yourself, like whether it's a treat or pat on the back when you've actually met that. By the way, sidebar, anyone watching, Cassie and I did not both plan to wear green. We're just draped in green right now. Everything's green, but hey, it's the color of money and that's
That's right.
success.
Like, I wanna be successful financially, don't get me wrong, but for me, that's not the complete focus right now. No.
Right. Well, and I think realistically, you and I both have day jobs, thankfully, and that provides capital to do what we want as far as how we want to have our author business framed. So we are lucky in that way. But let's talk about money for a second
Okay.
because I think I've noticed authors, it's kind of something that's a little uncomfortable to talk about at first. I'm not talking if you've published 20 books. But I'm talking like your first or second book, like even just figuring out pricing, right? Figuring out
Yeah.
what you think everything should sell for and questions about, well, what do I need to make back in order to justify a paying for this cover or this extra little thing I want to do. And there's been times when I've talked to sophomore authors where it's almost like as soon as you bring up money, it gets uncomfortable because it's not exactly what creatives are. It's not what
Yeah.
we love to talk about first. We love to talk about story and characters and naming and world building and how much is your book? It's like, oh, it's like the record that goes, "Rah!"
Yeah. Well, and it's almost that aspect of how much am I worth, and we shouldn't really tie
Yeah.
ourselves to the
No,
book's worth. Yeah.
no.
No.
How did you decide what to price your book? Because it sounds like such a basic question, but it's another little box to check off in
Yeah.
your business. Like where are you going to price things to make money in a way, but also not price yourself out of the market? So
Right.
what did you what
I think I just followed my genre conventions that I was seeing on retailers, to be quite honest. I knew that writing short, for example, a lot of people will sell at 99 cents, or $1.99. And I was like, well, I'm a little bigger than a 10,000 word short, so
Mhm.
I'm a 2.99 buy. I'm like, it's a cup of coffee. It's not that big of a deal. And now novels are going up. And I appreciate the novels that are going up in price, 5.99, what have you. And I mean, some of the traditional publishers, they're killing me at 12.99 for an ebook.
Mhm.
Nonetheless, I just kind of look at my genre conventions and then I go from there. I also look at series pricing and how I want to manage that. And for me, if I'm going to do a print, I'm going to look at, what it costs for me to have it printed and then what my gain is after that. It's hard to do that with ebooks necessarily in the same way, but for print books, because mine are so much shorter and thinner, I was like, okay, what could what would be worth it for somebody to buy? Kind of thing. So I wasn't really looking at my genre. I was looking more at children's books actually, because they're around the same. Like Magic Tree House is kind of like the same with mine. So I was kind of like, what would I be comfortable with as a buyer? What would other, and I kind of test market it a little bit. And then I felt pretty comfortable where I'm at. But yeah, I think you just have to look at the market and what's working, what's not working, and be flexible to adjust too. Cause, you know, you can when you are an indie author, you have that ability to pivot,
Right.
and a lot of
Yeah.
people forget that. They're like, "Oh, my book's not selling." Well, put it on for sale for a little while.
Hmm.
Try a different price range, box set it, whatever you need to do so that you can sell it. Yeah, so what about you? Did you think about that really long and hard or have some kinda method to the
Yeah.
madness?
Well, I was looking at my comps, and especially with the sci-fi, based on what everyone's page count was
Mhm. Yeah.
and how they were pricing that. So based on length. But I think part of businesses, you have to look at your comps. I think you should, even when you're coming up with your title, you should search and do a search and see, are there 20 with that same title or
Yeah.
pretty close? Then you might not stand out. Is there three trad authors that are selling like crazy with that same title? Might want to pick a different one. Even I do that with character names. I'm like, does
Do
this
you
name
really?
feel really saturated? Yeah, I've Googled that before because I don't want to be totally out of the box,
Mm.
but in romance, especially Western romance, I'm learning like Wyatt is a very saturated, popular name. So I actually might avoid that. So that mine stands out just a little bit more. All these little details, you think it may not matter, but it's just another drop in the bucket. So yeah, when I'm just brainstorming a novel, especially title, and then when I get to the final things, I do look at, you know, what's the page length and what it costs. And in retail, the rule is you don't ever want to price something too low because people don't see value in it. I'll never forget I was trying to come up with pricing for this new handbag line, and I was pricing it a little bit lower, and I had a woman come by the cart when I was putting tags on it, and she just told her friend, she was like, these are probably knockoffs. They're cheap. Look at it. These are way too inexpensive. And you would thought they would have jumped on it, but they thought it was fake leather. Like the price was lower and they didn't see it as being valuable. And so you don't want to
Isn't
price
that
yourself too.
something?
Yeah, it was such a learning for me because I was not sure about the line. So I was being very cautious. I mean, everyone marks up stuff because you have to do this in retail to survive, but I wasn't taking huge margins on it. So, lesson, don't price yourself too low so that people don't think there's value in your work. But if you're pricing yourself too high, people are going to like, well, I can get this book for $5 less. I'm talking paperback because I'm more dealing with paperback things. So I did price my paperbacks dollar lower at first in the market just to be right in the middle. And that seems to have worked because it's better to sell more at a dollar less than to not sell any at a dollar more.
Yeah,
So it takes a little bit of research though, but that's still part of your business. Looking for a price, looking for titles so it stands out, maybe making sure your character names stand out, just all those little things that, yeah, make it worth it for you. So, but they're uncomfortable conversations and you just have to start having them if you want to start running this like an author business. So, yeah,
yeah.
I mean, something to think about.
And also think about you don't have to add all the bells and whistles to your printed book because that drives costs. One of the things I've been
Yes.
thinking about a lot is the things that drive costs that are overseas printing. how much I'm paying for shipping to get it in
Mhm.
country. It's not worth
Mhm.
it. And then
Yeah.
I'm having to price my book so high. So you also have to think about that. In some cases, you can buy in bulk, but you also have to manage, are you going to sell everything that you buy in bulk directly?
Mhm.
Um, it's a lot of business decisions that people don't think about, but you don't want cases of your book sitting in a garage either, just gathering dust.
Right.
If you're not
Yeah.
going to sell them directly, or you're not going to go to events, or you're not going to do certain things to, move them, maybe not buying in bulk is a good idea and using a print on demand. But that also changes whether you have a printed spine, color, the printed spine edges, the edges that are printed, ribbons, like color, like all the things. So
Yeah.
keep that in mind too. Those are all big business decisions.
Right. And I think it's if you want to invest in those kinds of special editions, I think it's good to get some data on, hey, is my story even selling?
Yeah.
Before I go through all this. And that is something I didn't realize because I was trying to get really fancy with embellishments in the pages of the sci-fi book, like having the start of each new chapter have this cool sci-fi scene behind it. And it really changed the printing costs. And for a brand new author, is someone going to really, yes, your book may
Yeah.
be a little more attractive on the inside. They're going to read it, they're going to put it back on their shelf, hopefully remember it, but then they're moving on. So you spent all this money.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're doing a Kickstarter, yes, obviously having that special edition option is something extra offer. If you're selling direct, you've got 7 books out and you want to have this cool box set or something. Yes, those are all business decisions, but it still is an investment. How much are you spending versus what's your return going to be?
Right.
And again, those are stuff we don't always want to think about, but it's
Yeah.
gonna save you if you think about it on the front end than on the back end, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. And sometimes you just bumble along the way, but you learn and then you figure it out, find different
Absolutely.
printers, all the things. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to try, and that's how you learn. That's what Becca Syme said. I'm gonna be quoting her a lot because I just got done with this class, but she said, "You don't know until you fail." Right? You kind of have to fail a little bit, and then that's a
Yeah.
learning experience. So don't be afraid to fail. And yes, you may invest in something that I don't want to say fail, but just didn't give you the return you were expecting. So then you streamline and try to save costs another way. But
Right.
yeah. So, yeah. So, another piece of your business is the fact that you are the brand, right? It's not just in your novel, but how you are in public. And I think what a lot of people don't talk about early on or prepares you when you are the face of your books is thinking about, you know, um every public move, every social media post, every response to a bad review. You're not supposed to do that. Every opinion you share in a Facebook group, um, it all comes back to your brand. I think if your brand is you're writing social justice nonfiction books, then of course you might be really outspoken on issues that are really important to you.
Right.
And if that's kind of goes along with your writing, then that's what your readers are probably going to expect. But I'm a romance author. I'm very careful what I'm sharing online. And I have to like tell myself, don't comment on this because people are going to see it. And you're a romance author and that's your brand. And so I try to kind of comment on romance things, although I did comment on something our local utility company is doing that's making me mad. I mean, I'm
So you
safe.
can comment on stuff like that as yourself and not your author
Even
social
if
media
someone
stuff.
searched and found that I was an author, it's not like I had a controversial take on something.
I'm going to quote Dolly Parton because she's a
Yes.
treasure.
She's
But
everything.
somebody asked her, "Why don't you ever talk about your political views? Why don't you ever talk about, things that are going on in the world?" And she said, "My job is to entertain. My political views are my own and personal, and that's not what you pay me for." Sorry, Dolly, treasure, so smart.
I mean,
I
whatever she
just
says goes. We have to do what
Whatever
she
she says
says.
goes.
I mean,
But
there's
I
nothing.
feel the same way. You don't pay me, you don't enjoy me and my books for my political views, and I don't really talk much politically anyway. So I don't
Yeah.
think that's something I want to share either. I think that's personal to me. I might share like generalities, but I also am not going to get deep in discussions about AI. I'm not gonna get deep in discussions about other countries and benefits and, just different hot topics
Yeah.
socially. The things I get strong-willed about, you'll find them in my books. You'll find it in the pink text. You'll
Mhm.
know what I stand for to certain degrees that I think are important. But I also feel that as you've said before in some of the thread discussions that we've had, like some people, they've shot themselves in the foot before their book ever got out
My
because
gosh.
they
I
take
mean,
these strong stands and those are personal stands. That's not what people are paying your book to know unless that is your book is some political thing. Most of the time it's fiction people and they get caught up in their own way before their book even comes out. And I took a stance a long time ago that that's just not something I'm talking about.
mhm.
We want to talk
Yeah.
tropes, we want to talk books.
Right.
I'm here all day. Like I just not the other.
Animals, food, I'm there,
Yeah.
basics. But yeah, I think an author, it wasn't even, it was like something she was shaming readers about. And that's never a good idea. I mean, I will say, and I think authors can agree. I think I've talked publicly about like the AI police need to chill.
Yeah.
Not
Or I think
everything is
all the
AI,
police
guys.
need to chill. Judge me on
Yeah,
my art, judge me on my
right.
book. Fine. Do it all day.
Don't be telling me because I have certain punctuation that I wrote my book with AI. I feel comfortable speaking on that because as an
Yeah.
author, I've seen author careers get tanked by people leaving these awful reviews, claiming things are AI when it came down to an M dash. And I'm like, I am going to speak out on that kind of stuff, but that isn't so far out of the norm with where a lot of
Not
authors
saying
think.
your
Yeah,
political beliefs and
no, it's
whether
not
or not
calling
you're in
out one
agreement with
person.
a war that's going on
Yeah,
or who's
no.
in office and no, I'm not going there. Sorry.
Well,
I'm
if
just
you
not.
really want to know, let's have coffee and I'll tell you face to face. Like, I don't
Yeah.
have any problem discussing that, but I do it with people that it's got to be a different environment
I
because
think
it's
it
just not,
helps too to have a pen name because you can kind of separate your pen name from
yeah.
your
Hmm.
personal life, what does CK
Yeah.
Darling stand for versus Cassie Newell, you know?
Right.
Kind of
Yeah.
easy for me to do that.
Yeah. So it is just something to think about. And I think as long as you're consistent, I think what's also hurt authors is they just present it a certain way and then they had this weird take or just hostility online towards something or called out
Yeah.
another author or called out a reader by name. And that just, yeah, that really shot people in the foot.
I
And the
do
thing is, you
think
don't always know. People silently unfollow. It's not always that they're going to scream and
I've
yell.
done
They're
it.
going to be like, unfollow, unfollow, unfollow. You don't know. And is it worth alienating people that you don't even know are out there following you in the first place?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah, I do think sometimes we get so passionate because we're creatives anyway, and I think sometimes you just have to reel it in, and I think too. I've watched some pretty heavy hitter authors just
Mhm.
get bamboozled by the reader attack mob for whatever reason. They didn't like their narrator they picked or whatever it was. I do watch those authors to see how they handle it. And sometimes I'm like, do they have a PR manager? Because sometimes they do beautifully. They come out strong, but they're right. And then they get their community behind them, which is nice, and I think, again, talking about momentum, it's lovely to have that around you, because usually the mob mentality is not a community-based thing. It's usually somewhere
No.
outside of your community. I
Right.
I do think you need to think like a PR person. Don't
Mhm.
respond with the first emotional instinct. Step back. Give it
Yeah.
24 hours.
Yeah.
That was given to me by somebody who works in PR. They were like, they always act like, "Oh, if I don't address it as quickly as possible, it'll go out like crazy," and it never does. She was like, "Take a break, step back."
Mhm.
Sometimes silence is the best response too.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, I just think if you're in those situations where it gets really hostile and you are panicking, just take a moment before you post something or respond in an emotional way. Just really work through it like you would a blurb, which we all hate doing, writing blurbs,
Yeah.
or those taglines. It's like just take a moment and really step
Yeah.
back before you just let your thumbs fly. So,
Or
yeah.
if you have to, like, get something out, I've done a total hate post, and then I just don't ever publish it.
Yeah, careful because
So, yeah.
sometimes you hit the button and you don't mean to. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the
No,
worst.
I get really passionate, and especially defending other authors,
Yeah.
but no, I don't ever publish that stuff. The other thing is the oversharing trap. This I'm gonna start. This person I unfollowed had an author business. They were selling products relating to helping with authors. That's what I signed up for. But the newsletters coming out were all this personal tragedy, personal angst, breakups, firings, all this stuff. And then all these excuses about why a class didn't happen, refunding, like
Oh,
just total chaos in the personal life. Now, I feel bad for you, but I just stopped because, and I don't give that person money anymore, not because I don't feel sorry for where they were in, but you can also quietly just, you don't even need an explanation. Sorry, there was a glitch. This class didn't happen. Here's what we're going to do about it. That's better to me than like the personal story or the emails where I signed up to get business tips and it's all personal. This stuff happened to me and this person and an ex. And I'm like, God, I don't want to. This is not what I signed up for. This is not your
right.
business. This has nothing to do. You're writing nonfiction marketing help for writers. And same with another author who broke their ankle. And then it was the blow by blow of the injury, the surgery.
Yeah.
I think some things to show you know,
That
we're
happens on
humans.
social media.
Yeah.
Remember when, like,
But not
Facebook
that
first
much.
came out and people were like, "So and so's drinking a Coke. Who cares?" You know?
Right. Yeah. All the
You're
food
just
pictures. Yeah.
yeah, so I think it
Yeah.
goes with everything, like, people just don't know. I think there's a fine line of sharing your personal stuff, but people
Yeah.
don't
I mean,
follow me because they wanna know about me living in a log cabin right now. They follow me because they wanna know about
actually,
my
that's
romance
pretty
books.
interesting, though. It's
Well, I
actually,
might give a little bit, but I'm not gonna make my whole
yeah.
newsletter about
Oh,
it. Like, I'll
no,
give
a
people
little snippet.
insights. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I think there's a fine balance too, and you
Yeah,
just
a
have
little
to yeah.
snippet of you on vacation or something.
Yeah,
You found a
absolutely.
bird's nest in your thing and here's a picture. Those kind of moments are very sweet. I think anything with animals people love. But after a while, you've got to stay focused. All right. You are still running a business, focused. And like, I think
Yeah,
a good rule of thumb is this necessary? And is this what people have signed up for? Doing an intention check before you're posting something.
right.
Is this what my readers signed up for? And if it's like, no, then don't post it. But
Agreed.
we still want to express ourselves. It's just how much. And that's kind of what matters. So, the final thing I wanted to talk about, and if you've got stuff you want to talk about, we can talk about it. Uh, but the pressure to publish. I think that model is changing. Thank goodness. And again, this is from the class I just took with Becca Syme. It was a 2-day class. It was really amazing. And it was really all about your author brand, your author business. But one thing she talked about was we always think we've got this pressure to publish. And I'm not going to say it as eloquently as she put it together in her seminar. But what I took out of it was we think we've got to just crank these books out. And I'm saying not everyone thinks this way, but I was taught that you should rapid release even novels. I think it works differently with shorts, and Cassie will speak on that. But when you're writing full length novels, I was told in a series, don't publish one until everything is perfectly done, edited. And I'm like, I'm a slow writer. That's going to take like 3 years. I
Yeah,
wanna get something out so I know. Imagine
I
if
hear
I
you.
had not published until this year because I had 6 books done and ready to go. I would have no data on how things are selling, trends come and go. I didn't wanna
And you
wait,
wouldn't
but
have
I'm
the opportunity to pivot in your own series.
right. I wouldn't have probably started writing the romance. So I am glad I did that, but that was always ingrained. Like that a few years ago, that's what everyone was doing to just the readers are voracious and they want this now. And if you wait too long, you're gonna lose people. And that got in my head. And so I was
Mhm.
thinking this pressure, like I gotta get 2 books out a year. But what felt very validating after going through Becca's course is we talk about Clifton strengths. And the way my strengths are is it just stacks up to me being a slower writer. I'm not a fast writer. That's just how I am. And she reassured me by saying there's always going to be demand. You're not just,
Yeah, it's
if
never
you
going
don't,
away.
right.
Never.
It's never going away. There's always demand for books, right? There's not just like a trend is dying where if we don't get our books out now in a couple of years, no one's gonna be reading books and no one's gonna be
Baloney.
looking for romance novels or
Yeah.
whatever. The demand is always gonna be there. There's a way to cultivate like getting your fandom going and having readers that follow you, but they will be there, you know? And if if you come out with something new and they follow you, they're gonna know and they're gonna buy it. So, like,
Yeah.
don't
And you'll find new
feel that
people that
pressure.
just got
Yeah,
into reading,
right, right. So,
switching
that
genres
was
and
really
all the things. Yeah.
freeing to me
Yeah.
because now I have actually, okay, what if I do only publish 1 book a year, you know?
That's
I mean, that's
amazing.
still something.
What's amazing. I mean, think about some of the books, authors I'm waiting on. I'm like, come on, Fourth Wing. I need the last book. She's just now writing it this year. That's okay.
Right.
You
Yeah,
know what?
because she
Because
wrote
I'm
other
going to
things in
freaking buy
between.
it when it comes out, you
Right.
know?
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, there's some authors that do it every 18 months because they
Right.
also have to build in their marketing time. I think people also
Mhm.
forget it's not just write, edit, hit the button. You need to build in some cushion for that production time and the launch and release time, right? You've got to
Yeah.
build that. And people forget that and they're like, oh, the wheel works like this, right? Publish, repeat, right? Publish, repeat. And it can, but you're going to wear yourself out so
I think it's
fast.
a joy stealer. I think it's
Yeah,
destroys the joy of
it
it
is.
because when I was thinking like I didn't really know what to write next, the thing I wanted to write wasn't finishing any of the series. Well, I need to finish something for the readers who started reading this. Just let go of all that, right? You want to write and look at, yeah, like Rebecca Yarros. She didn't finish the Fourth Wing series all at once. She's written other books in
Yeah,
between.
in between. Well, she's had other
Although,
commitments with other
yes,
publishers, right? So,
yeah, but
yeah,
and
a
I'm
little different.
not let me just clarify that I am not comparing myself to Rebecca Yarros in any way, shape, or
Yes.
form, but it's the possibilities are endless. Feeling pressure, you've gotta do just this, that actually will rob you, I think, of all of your creative energy. So, I think that was the takeaway for me is we tend to put pressure on ourselves when we're trying to run our businesses.
Yeah,
And we have to still remember to nurture the creative side of your mind and take time for rest. That was another big theme that came out of Becca's seminar was rest. Rest your
yeah,
mind. Especially my number one strength is strategic. And so the second I awake, my mind starts running. I'm looking at my emails. I'm just already there and I actually had to cognitively tell myself, no, just lay here for a few more minutes, rest your
right.
mind, stop thinking, and then go. And that we can't keep running on fumes,
Yeah.
And so that's why, and that leads to author burnout when we don't rest our mind or fully nurture the creative side when we're so wrapped up in all the business essentials. So, yeah, that's another.
Well, I think you have to know yourself. It's a business
Mhm.
decision too, how much you work. So I made the decision, like, I'm not writing on purpose or on schedule for half of the year. And I know
Right.
Angela was like, "Sure, right, Cassie." But
Right.
no, I have no, like, timeline thing that I have to deliver to. So for me, I can piddle, I can be creative if I want to, but I'm not driven by butt in the seat words on the page, and I need that for me. I've learned that. I need that or I will burn out and my body will take it anyway. So remember, those are business decisions. Those aren't, I'm a failure and I need to take a break because a lot of times that gets in our head too that, oh, I see everybody else doing this and I've just stopped. No,
Right.
that has nothing to do with you. They probably wrote that book 2 years ago. You don't know.
Yeah, you don't know that.
Like,
Yeah.
you know, build in time for you, build in creative time, build in production time, build in buffer time. Like, we need it. And I do come back from those inspired because usually my input, I'm gathering all the things that are interesting to me and what's next, right? So, yeah, those are business decisions in my mind
Yeah.
when you start
Absolutely.
scheduling out your year, what that might look like. And you have to be able to pivot because life will change things for you too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think for me, the takeaways from this episode are you're gonna have to have the uncomfortable discussions about money and rate of return on your product and how much are you selling things for. And you know what? Just sit down, take some time, do a little research. It may be uncomfortable for you and you need to get comfortable with it. About your brand, think carefully about what you're sharing and does that match your brand? How are you presenting yourself online? And does that reflect what your readers signed up for? Basic question. With the pressure to publish, let some of that go and really get in tune to and really nurture that this is the kind of writer I am. And maybe you can crank out books left and right. That's cool as long as that's just who you are and that's how you're wired and you're not feeling like you're trying to meet the pressure of demand because
Right.
sometimes there is no pressure of the demand. The demand is always there. So understanding what you want your publishing schedule to be. What do you think for you? Some takeaways about, like, as we wrap up business month, what are you
Yeah, I think avoid
thinking?
turning every creative decision into a financial decision is
Hmm.
one. And I've really struggled with that discussion for myself at the beginning of the year and sat down with my family to discuss it and then we made some decisions around it and I was just why am I making this so difficult for myself? And it was great. So,
Yeah.
I think that's something I've learned this year, as well as us just talking a lot about business in general. And then also, just because everybody else is doing something doesn't mean it's the right fit for me. I was so pumped. I was on that path. I'm going to do a Kickstarter. And then when I really sat down and I looked at what I'm currently doing, what my workload is in terms of not just my author business, but my day job, in addition to other things, I don't know that that's the best fit. So, I'm really taking the time to step back is important on all things. Even if you're gravitating to something and then maybe you will go forward and do that, and I may do it later, but I realized what I was looking for isn't really what I was gonna get out of it. So, I think those things are important, and you've gotta give yourself time and space to research that stuff out for yourself and what works for you. So, I think those are my big takeaways. I'm a huge supporter of all things creative and indie related. I love, supporting creatives in general. I'm getting artwork done right now. I'm so excited about it. So I just think you have to think what works for you, your brand, and remember that, as you're operating in a business, it's not a business until it's a business. So sometimes those creative decisions don't have to be if you have the ability, they don't have to be a financial decision. It could be a building block decision. So, those are my takeaways for this month.
Yeah. I think those are excellent. I think it's a great way to wrap up business month. I do want to do another little extra plug, just citing our sources. For those of you interested in Becca Syme, betterfasteracademy.com, and so many resources and so many books. Dear writer, are you in burnout? That was a really great one for me. Just a lot of self talk about like where you really are realistically. Dear writer, you need to quit, what to keep, lots of housekeeping, but she has so many resources. So, dear writer, check out Becca Sign. Yeah. So, what are your updates? You had a great
I
conference in
did. I had a great
Chattanooga.
conference.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I sold enough for my table that I
That's
had,
great.
purchased, so I was, like, super excited. Yeah, and I met other authors and networked and, like, we're keeping in touch. Um, and I met some influencers that I was like, "Oh my gosh, I see them on TikTok all the time, and they're interviewing me. This is crazy."
That's
It
great.
was really cool, and it was funny because my husband went with me as my PA, and, he was just astounded at how people would pick up my hardback because it does have a pink edging on it, and they would just buy it, and he was like, "This is insane! Like, why do you care? If it's on the
Right.
bookshelf, you don't see it." He couldn't wrap his
No.
mind around, like, the special things about books, but I don't know, it was a fabulous experience. It's probably the right kind of experience for me and a little smaller because I'm going to a much bigger one in June that I'm probably ill prepared for, but I'm gonna give it a go anyway. So, yeah, it was great. It was fabulous. Yeah, I'm excited. I wanna do more conferences, and I would love to do them more locally. It's just one of those things you have to hear about them, find out where to sign up.
Mhm.
There's not like a central place, like, these are all the conferences taking like, it's kind of word of
Yeah,
mouth,
it
and
is.
it's difficult, but this is also where networking comes in great, you just kind of, "Hey, there's an opportunity." You throw your hat into it and see if you get into it and then go from there, so that's kind of what I'm doing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great. It's a great segue because next month we're gonna be talking about networking, creating community around you through readers, through other authors, but I think conferences are a great way to do that as long as, like, you always do your homework, but do research when one pops up because there's some that aren't well marketed, don't
Yeah.
have people. I saw one over the weekend. I don't know where it was, but so many authors were there. There was no people. There was nothing. It was so empty. And
No.
people were like, I drove, I paid. And so the word of mouth is key because you want to go onto socials and see what other authors are saying about this event. And then that's how you can judge.
Like, any event I could drive to early on a Saturday,
Mhm.
set up, and then drive home, like, I really want that
It's
because hotel
awesome.
costs and things like that, they
Yeah.
really start to add up unless you're using it as a vacation, and do that for yourself. That's a business expense.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, those things where you're like I'm also cognizant of how much a person charges for a full table,
Mhm.
and things like that. So, yeah, be wary, do your research for sure. Mm.
Yeah. Hmm. For me, I finally started writing the heartbeat equation. That's the sequel to My Plus One Equals You.
Yay!
that's finally flowing. I got the cover done and it looks great. And
Does look great
um, yeah,
because I
so
got to
that's,
see.
yeah, she sees all the secrets. So yeah, finally writing again. Thank goodness, because I feel really weird when I don't write. Okay, so I don't know where the conversation cards went. Anyway, thank you for joining us today. Don't forget to give us a review and rating wherever you listen to the podcast. It really helps us with visibility. And if you're interested in joining us for our romance corner, the author next door after dark, make sure and sign up for our newsletter. This month, we're talking about the use of dialogue as seduction, how banter builds intimacy. Next week, new month, and the topic is all around creating community, how as authors we can network and really build up the network and community around us. Great guests with that. So until then, keep writing, keep doing. We'll see ya.
We're so glad you joined us for this episode of The Author Next Door.
Writing is a long game, and it's one best played with community, curiosity, and a little grace for yourself along the way.
Keep showing up, keep learning, and keep telling stories only you can tell.
We'll see you next week, right here next door.